Morning everyone. So here today we are going to look at a quite difficult question under Freefall. So we have, from an elevated point A stone is projected vertically upwards. When the stone reaches a distance h below A, its velocity is double what it was a height h above A. Show that the greatest height obtained by the stone above A is 5h over 3. So what are we going to do for this one? So we have, let's say this is the stone, it goes up like that. When it is here, let's say that the velocity is v1, then it begins to come down like that. Then the velocity at the same distance h below A, which we are going to call negative h, is double the velocity. So we can say that here we are told that here it is, we can call this one as our v1. Then below A, it is double according to what we have been given. The greatest height, its velocity is double of what it was at the height h above A. So we have been told what is this? Then the stone reaches a distance h below A, its velocity is double of what it was at the height h above A. So if this is our v1, it means to say at the bottom double means we are going to say 2 v1 like that. So with that done, we can be able to now form some equations. So now if it is above A, it shall assume a positive. Now remember, this is thrown up. So since it is thrown up, the gravity which is acting downwards will be considered to be negative. So the coordinate axis, as long as we have the initial, it was thrown up, it means to say the gravity is negative. So it shall be taken to be negative throughout, regardless of where it is. Even as it begins to fall, it will still be negative with respect to the initial position, which was negative. So now let's consider the from the point A going up there, we have our v1 like that. So which kinematic equation can we use? So we can pick from our v squared should be equal to our u squared plus our 2as like that. So what we are going to have is, we also have our v is equal to u plus our at like that. Then we have our s should be equal to ut plus our half at squared. Now, due to the fact that we are just looking, we don't have the time, so the equation that we are going to use is this one, where we have the final, we have the initial and acceleration and the displacement, which will act as our h. So now when it is h above A, so this height above A, when it is at this point, when it is at this point, we are going to say that using this equation, using our v squared should be equal to u squared plus our 2as, we are going to be having something like our v squared is equal to v1 like that. So we have the v1 where we have the final there is v1 squared should be equal to, then we have our initial, we don't know, so we have u squared, then we have plus our 2, then the gravity shall assume a negative value since it was thrown up, so 9.8. then we have our s. Now where there is s, we can be able to put our height h above A, so which shall be positive since it's above A. So we are going to have our v1 squared should be equal to u squared like that. 2 by 9.8 will give us negative 19.6 h like that. So this is what we have for that one. So with that considered, we are going to also find h below A. So for h below A, the h value will take a negative. So using this same equation, v squared is equal to u squared plus 2as, we are going to end up with this type of an arrangement. We are going to have our, at the height h below a, we were told that the velocity is double, so we are going to say 2v1 where there is v squared, 2v1, then we have squared should be equal to u squared minus our, also plus, sorry, we have our 2, then the gravity, regardless of all points, the gravity will be considered to be negative because initially it was negative. Then the height h below s will take a negative value, since the displacement will show you what is the value of that thing in terms of the direction. Since it is below h, it will take the, since it's below a, it will take the negative. So now we have our, this squared will can distribute, it can come here, so this is the same as having our 2 squared. 2 squared is equal to 4, so what we are going to have is a 4. Then v1 squared, we are going to have v1 squared. So these two will be distributed on this number and on this number, both of them shall have that value. So we have, this should be equal to our u squared, then 2 times negative 9.8 times negative h. Negative times negative will be positive, so we are going to have positive 19.6 h like that. So we have this one as our equation 2, this one as our equation 1 like that. So with that said, we are going to look at our next problem. So our next problem is such that we are going to be having let's find our maximum height. Since they are talking about the greatest height, that's the maximum height. Now if you look at the maximum height, at the maximum height, the final velocity is equal to 0. If a body is from here, it moves to a certain point, let's say here. The only reason why it would not continue going up is because the final velocity is 0. Therefore, it can no longer go up any further. So now what we are going to have is, to find the greatest height, we are going to use the same equation. V squared should be equal to u squared plus our 2as, since we don't know the time. So at the greatest height, our v squared is 0, the final is 0. 0 squared should be equal to u squared. Then we are going to have our plus 2. The gravity is negative 9.8. Then we have our s. Now in this case, our s, which is the maximum, if the final velocity is 0, then that's your maximum, which would assume the letter h there. So we are going to have, we take the u this side, we are going to have u squared should be equal to negative 19.6. So even this one, when it comes there, it will be negative. Then we have h like that. So our h value will be equal to this. So before we take it any further, let's just leave it like this. So we can just cancel the negatives since they are on both sides. So we have u squared should be equal to 19.6 h like that. So now, if that's the case, we have the equation, this equation, that equation. So what we are going to do is that we have another equation. Let's get these equations. So this is our 3 equations. So now what we need to do is that we need to find a way of substituting what the value of this will be. So now, with that considered, we need to first work out with these 2 equations. So now, as long as you have 2 negative, one is negative, the other one is positive, what you can do is that you can add these 2 equations. Because if you add negative 19.6 plus 19.6, it will give you 0, meaning to say one of them can be eliminated. So you can do that. So adding these two, we are going to end up with our positive. The reason why we are adding is so that we can get rid of some things. So v1 squared plus 4v1, this one will give us a 5v1 squared should be equal to u squared plus u squared, it shall be equal to 2u squared. Negative 19.6 plus 19.6, it will just cancel out because that will be a 0. So what we are going to have is we are going to divide from here to have a 2 over a 2 like that. So what we have ended up with is a 5 over a 2 v1 squared should be equal to u squared. So already the equation was asking us to express in the form 5h over 3. So at least we have a 5. So with that said, we can be able to now remember the greatest height equation. We have a, is it 2h? So according to the greatest height equation that we have come up with, we have found that it is equal to 19.6h. So we can say 19.6h should be equal to our u squared like that. So now if you look at this type of an arrangement, what we don't in the equation, they want us to show 5h over 3. They don't want this v1, so we must find a way of eliminating this. Then if we eliminate this, we can now substitute it direct there. So what are we going to use? So using these two equations again, we are going to be able to replace where our v1 is. So now as you can see, our equation is such that we have v1 here. So what we are going to do is that we are going to get, so what we are going to do is that, as you can see from the equation, we are going to make our u squared the subject of the formula. So we are going to get this equation, move it to this side. So what we are going to end up with is our v1. So it will be our v1 squared. Then we have plus our 19.6h should be equal to u squared like that. So this is the equation that we have gotten like that. Now if you look at this equation, u squared is equal to that. So this same equation, if you are saying that your u squared is equal to this, get this equation, put it in the second equation where u is. So we are going to have our 4v1, we are just writing this 4v1 squared should be equal to, where there is u, you are going to put this. That's the meaning, since it's u squared. So we have v1 squared plus our 19.6h like that. We have plus our 19.6h like that. So what we are going to end up with is taking our value of, so we have 4v1 squared minus v1 squared should be equal to 19.6 plus 19.6 will give us a 39.2h like that. So 4v1 minus 4 minus v1 will give us a 3v1 squared, which should be equal to 39.2h. So this is the equation that we are getting. Remember, our maximum height is equal to 19.6. Then we have our u squared like that. The other equation that we were finding was, so we have, first let's divide over 3 over our 3. So we are going to find that our value for that one, it will be equal to v1 squared should be equal to, we have our 39.2h over 3 like that. Then finally what we are going to get is our other equation was also saying that if we get this other equation, which one was that we got? It's this equation. So just getting this equation, we are going to copy this and get the equation there. So getting this equation, we are going to find that our V1 is equal to 39.2h over 3. So where there is V1, we are going to put this. So we are going to end up with, don't forget this equation. So we are going to end up with 5 over 2. Where there is V1, we are going to put the equation, which is our 39.2h. So we have times our 39.2h over our, according to this, over our 3 should be equal to our u squared. So where there is this, we have just put what our V1 squared is. So according to this, this is what we have. Then the equation, the main equation for that, it's 19.6h should be equal to u squared. So if you look at this, we have 19.6h should be equal to u squared. Finally, get this equation, u squared. Where there is u squared, you are going to replace with this. So we have a 19.6h should be equal to our u squared, which is a 5 over 2, like that. U squared is just all this value. Then we have times 39.2 h over our 3, like that. So reducing some values, we are going to divide 2 divided by 39.2 will give you 19.6, like that, h. Then we are going to have something like our 19.6 h should be equal to 5. This 3 times this one, it will be 5 over 3. So at least we have something times a 19.6 h. So from there, what we are going to do is we are going to divide. So it's the same as just dividing 19.6. So that's the greatest height is left alone over 19.6. So you can cancel. We are going to remain with our h should be equal to, should divide throughout, this one and this one will go. You are going to have your 5 over 3 h, like that. So that is how you go about that one. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you would like, subscribe and share for more. See you in the next tutorial.